A simple glass of milk being poured into coffee sparked an epiphany in Hawking's mind about the origin of the universe. If time could reverse, the milk would flow back to its original state before being poured. So could time itself have begun at that very instant of the Big Bang? This thought sent Hawking into a frenzy of calculation and contemplation. He worked tirelessly, crunching numbers and wrestling with equations until finally, he arrived at his own groundbreaking theory. He couldn't wait to share his findings with the world. But suddenly, his body betrayed him. He lost his balance and crashed hard to the floor. He was rushed to the hospital for examination, and after extensive testing, the doctors delivered devastating news that would change everything. He was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, a condition that would rob him of control over his muscles. Not only would he lose the ability to walk and speak, but eventually even breathing and swallowing would become a struggle. And worst of all, this disease would drastically shorten his life. Hawking immediately asked the crucial question: would his mind be affected? The doctor could only shake his head helplessly. Hawking was only 21 years old. He retreated into his dorm room, shutting himself off from the world. He couldn't bring himself to answer his girlfriend's calls. Even when she came to his door, Hawking refused to see her. He couldn't bear the thought of burdening the woman he loved. But Annie wouldn't let him give up on himself that easily. She challenged him to a game of croquet. By then, Hawking's condition had already begun deteriorating. He could no longer walk normally, and his hands couldn't even grip objects properly. Watching Hawking's hunched figure struggling across the lawn, Annie made a bold decision: she would marry him. When Hawking's father learned of this, he tried to talk Annie out of it, but she sought out Hawking and made her feelings crystal clear. And so, at Hawking's darkest hour, Annie walked with him down the aisle. After their marriage, Annie gave birth to their first child, rekindling Hawking's will to live. He approached his professor to confirm his dissertation topic. He would study time itself. If an equation could prove that time had a beginning, then perhaps time could flow backward, and he could have lived a completely different life. Soon after, Hawking successfully earned his doctorate. At the celebration dinner, Hawking discovered he couldn't even hold a spoon anymore. Disappointed, he left to return to his room. As he struggled to climb the stairs, he realized his young son could move more easily than he could. He couldn't even express his grief properly. Both laughing and crying had become exhausting efforts. Before long, Hawking completely lost his ability to walk. Annie bought him a wheelchair and set up a bed on the first floor so he wouldn't have to struggle with the stairs anymore. With their second daughter's arrival, Annie's burden grew heavier, constantly running up and down between floors. Hawking tried to dress himself but got his head stuck in his sweater. He called out for help, but through a gap in the fabric, he glimpsed the flames in the fireplace. The sparks shooting outward looked exactly like particles escaping from a black hole. The scene perfectly mirrored his radiation theory. That day, the university organized a lecture for him. He demonstrated that black holes don't expand infinitely but constantly emit thermal radiation, causing their mass to gradually compress until they finally disappear in a massive explosion. But halfway through his presentation, several professors mockingly dismissed his ideas as nonsense. Hawking struggled to explain, his head tilted with effort, but the professors ignored him and started walking out. Then a cosmology professor stood up. Not only did he believe in Hawking's theory, but he encouraged him to continue developing it. The auditorium erupted in thunderous applause. His theory gained recognition